So our next presenter is Joanne Fries, President and CEO of Candente Copper. Candente trades on the TSX Big Board under the symbol DNT. The company owns 100% of a large economic copper, gold, silver deposit in Peru called the Cañariaco project. I hope I pronounced that well. Cañariaco Norte contains a pre-feasibility study on a very robust deposit with a 22-year mine life. Fortescue, the world's fourth largest iron producer, is the company's largest investor. Welcome, Joanne. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll jump in and share my screen right away. Get going here.
Yeah.
So our mandate is discovery and delineation, adding value for our shareholders. And of course, you know the forward-looking statements. We can look at those on our website. Our project is in Peru, a very well-established, prolific mining country. I've actually worked there myself, lived there in the mid-90s and worked there since. So at Cañariaco project, on the property, we have three targets: Norte, Cañariaco Norte, Cañariaco Sur, and Quebrada Verde. Norte is the most advanced, and all of the numbers I'm going to be referring to today, be they resources or economics, pertain to Cañariaco Norte. But in addition to that, within a 5-kilometer trend, we also have Cañariaco Sur, which has 15 drill holes into it. We know it's a porphyry. We know certain aspects of it, but we don't yet know average grade or how big it'll end up being. And then Quebrada Verde, we believe, is a third porphyry center. It has geochem and geophysics and copper mineralization in creek beds, very, very similar, and alteration and rock types that looks like another porphyry, but we have no drill holes into it yet. Third-party validation, and the biggest thing is Fortescue Metals. They hold 18.9% of us, and they're a very large iron ore company out of Australia who came into South America a few years ago doing exploration in Ecuador, Peru, and Argentina, and decided that getting involved with us would give them a better base hold on a more advanced project. Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank both have research out and have named us in their research. So with Fortescue, they've appointed a director. They can stay with right to participate in any equity financing, right of first refusal. It was for 2 years. That will run out May next year. And that's on debt, streaming, or royalty, but does not include a joint venture or a sale of the asset. We have a technical committee formed with them, and we meet every month or every 2 months to discuss best ways to develop the project and our work going forward. Goldman Sachs, this is actually 2018, deficit delayed, not denied, but they've updated it, and the work is still very, very valid. So they named us as one of top 84 copper projects in the world, and a big focus of theirs is the incentive copper prices. So prices needed to bring projects into production. And they also named us as one of the top 42 in South America. So the key thing here is that you can see where we sit on the price curve. We use 250 as our base case, and that's what we need, gives us this 18% IRR, so we could go in production at that price. And that's all based on our pre-feas 2011. And in any case, so you can see all the other players and projects to come online, and we're sitting very well there. And then Deutsche Bank more recently named us as one of 3 projects they feel will be needed to meet the upcoming supply-demand gap, and the fact that large cap miners need projects like ours or companies like ours to feed themselves the copper. We're also in the lowest quartile of C1 cash costs, and that is very important. So with those slides, I think it's the easiest way for anybody to see that we're a very economic and attractive project. Now, getting into some details, we're in northern Peru at the northern end of a very prolific belt. Well, so far, there are other projects up here, but not too much right north of us. And in any case, 40% of the taxes from mining go back to the region. And we actually happen to be in a different region. So we're in Lambayeque. All of these other mines or projects are all in Cajamarca. So we would be the first time that Lambayeque would see the huge tax base that comes from mining. So we're very important to that region. We can tie into grid power directly at Cañariaco with our own line, or follow to the coast. And that's our main access road. It's about a 6-7 hour drive. And we look forward to improving it for an actual operation, but it gives us pretty good access. And then we're expecting a new port to be built closer to us, but right now we have to use the port of Salivary, which Cerro Corona uses. Here you get to see the basically where Cañariaco Norte is. So this would be the larger pit. A smaller pit, if we have a smaller startup, would be here. This is our camp. So there's no families living in the zone. And you're looking at, we're actually on the eastern flank of the Andes. So it's not too high there, and the pit crest would be 3,000 meters, but also you can see that we have lots of water on site. So we own it 100%. We did a pre-feas in 2011 and launched into feasibility. By 2014, we stopped it just because the market didn't care. And so no equity nor copper. But we always have following that, it was our goal to optimize for a smaller, higher grade operation, which a lot of third parties were looking at and telling us it looked very good for. And so we are doing that currently with AUSENCO, but what I'm going to present to you first of all is what we did with the pre-feas. And by 43-101, that this is the most recent numbers I'm allowed to give you. So using 250 copper, we have over $1 billion NPV, and that's 17.5% IRR. This is after tax. Producing 260 million pounds of copper a year with some gold and silver, and that's a throughput of 95,000 tons per day. And that had a capex at that time of 1.56. Now, we thought that was pretty good because Hudbay had built Constancia for 1.7 right around that time. So that was a pretty fair price, and also a good price for producing this amount of copper per year. Low strip ratio, 1-to-1, good recoveries, mine metal recoveries. And reasons why we're lower cost. Now, soft rock, which needs, a lot of people don't think about this, but it needs less power for crushing and grinding. So that decreases your cost. Lots of water at site, port developed by others, not using a concentrate pipeline. And then, as I mentioned, direct power from the national grid. Here are our sensitivities. So going beyond 250 copper, let's start at 325. And if you use 1750 gold, then our NPV and IRRs, and again, these are after tax, are greatly improved. And then looking at our resource, most of it is measured and indicated, which becomes proven and probable with feasibility, but we still have a substantial amount that's inferred. And then we do have a smaller resource with a higher grade for concentrating on for starter pit. And here you can see using a 0.3 cutoff now, and to be honest, in current copper prices, you'd be mining, continue mining in the 0.2 level. But in any case, with 0.3, we have 9 billion pounds of copper, 2 million ounces gold, and 54 million ounces silver. So very significant deposit. And this is all in Cañariaco Norte. It does not include anything in Sur or Verde. Now with AUSENCO, we wanted to look at getting a lower capex, and of course improve OPEX costs, but also enhance our ESG practices. So the first thing we looked at was mitigation for the need of a roaster, which was proposed by, in 2011, the same roaster that Codelco is using in Chile. So technology works. What we noticed with time, though, is they're using on 4% arsenic, and we only have less than 1.5% arsenic life of mine. So what we did is did geometallurgy, and we're able to find that we had differing copper prices in every rock type and differing arsenic levels in every rock type. But in addition to that, they report to the con differently. So what that allowed us to do by starting with a smaller operation is have 2 shovels and actually do in-pit blending, and then pay some penalties where required. And so that's how we've managed to mitigate the need for the roaster. And that'll be both the smaller and the larger. More of the arsenic's at the upper levels of the deposit. So if we don't need it for the smaller, we certainly don't need it for the larger operation. And we looked at throughputs of 40, 50, and 60,000 tons per day. Each of them came back looking very positive. And the idea we have now is, as we would move into a PEA, is probably start with 50,000 tons per day. And we're hoping to have a capex less than $1 billion for that. And then have an expansion once we have cash flow. So once you have payback, and payback, you know, I'm just throwing numbers out here. They're not 43-101. These are just concepts, ideas, goals. But payback should be on a 50,000 ton per day, something less than 4 years at 325 copper. So if copper is above 4, it would be much better than that. And then the last thing I really wanted to look at is dry stack tailings, which I think is our big goal. It is a little more expensive. So we could in a PEA start with wet tailings and then move into dry stack tailings. But we'll investigate that further. And then moving on to the PEA, I think I've probably already said most of what's in here, but it was really game-changing, the geometallurgical modeling of the deposit that was not previously done. So hats off to AUSENCO for all their new ideas. They've done an excellent job so far. So here you see Cañariaco Norte, Sur, and Verde, as I explained, 3 centers within 5 kilometers. So all the numbers I've mentioned come from Norte. And then Sur, we have 15 holes, and we know it extends beyond to the west and northwest, and we have more phyllic alteration, which often has higher grades. So we're hoping to find some higher grades. So far, Sur seems to be a little bit lower grade than Norte, but it also has no arsenic, and it has some interesting gold zones. So even if we weren't able to do the blending we wanted to do with, which we now believe we can, just using Norte, we would also have blending opportunity from Sur. But we need to drill further to really understand this deposit. And then at Verde, as I mentioned, no drilling yet, but all the same geochem. And it's not marked there, but yeah, this is moly, copper and gold anomalies. And then there was one hole drilled off to the edge, but they were looking for a gold target, and it was very short. So it really didn't test the porphyry potential. And walking all these creeks, I've seen lots of copper mineralization that's typical of a porphyry. So I'm quite sure we've got something there. Just have to see if it's economic. Here you're standing on Norte looking south at Sur. So all the copper sitting right here, and then Quebrada Verde up here. That's the top of the Andes. And again, no families living in the area. Peruvian government came in just after Humala actually was elected and scared everybody that he might nationalize mines and be like Hugo Chavez, and he changed his mind very quickly. And in any case, came in and supported our local community with a commitment of $23 million in 26 projects. And we're actually the best supported exploration project by Peruvian government. These projects are underway and very significant for the local community and road improvements as well. And we're involved with that in that we support, but it's central government funding. And then I just wanted to throw this slide in from an article yesterday because I get so many questions. So first of all, I attended a Scotiabank conference yesterday morning about changing politics in both Chile and Peru. And I did quote them down here, but I've heard this from other sources. So Pedro Castillo looks like he might be the next president. And there were some concerns because his Peruvian party, Peru Libre, had some comments from one of their founders about nationalizing mines. The new economist working with Castillo, and they have a new bicentennial plan that they were announcing. They've been little by little giving out information on it, but now, yesterday on radio. And they consider that mining companies, there's no suggestion of nationalizing. It's just look at their taxes and make sure that everybody profits. They understand that mining companies have to, when they say continue to win, that means make money. No one pretends they should stop making profits. That's going to be the base floor. And really they're having a hard look at what Chile is doing. Between Chile and Peru, they produce 37% of the copper of the world. So I think that at the end of the day, yes, there will be some higher taxes, but nobody wants to stop the copper production of Chile or Peru, and it has to be economic for everybody. News flow for us. We just finished our desktop studies. We announced that we'll be launching into a PEA, which should take approximately 30 months. And on the back of that, we could potentially launch straight into a feasibility because we've done so much engineering in the past. But that would be focusing on a smaller startup and then further expansion later with cash flow. We are working on a new community agreement as we speak, and we're also working on our drill permits. We've been doing EIA work since last fall. And then other news, we do have a joint venture on one other project in Peru have a partner there that is applying for drilling permits. And then we just acquired an asset in northern BC that looks great, that a lot of people have already done a lot of geophysics, geochem, found good grades, definitely a porphyry, but a lot of work to do. And then our board of directors, very well experienced, I hate to say how many years in the business, and myself, geologist, engineer, financial and developer, and then also people from other countries. So Andres is Peruvian financial guy, and then Christine is director for Fortescue. She's from Australia, but living in Argentina. And then this is where we're sitting with shares outstanding. We're listed both on the TSX big board and the Lima Stock Exchange, BVL. And this is where we're sitting with options and warrants and such. And I think that's it.
Great overview, Joanne. Thanks very much for that.
You're welcome.
We're just on time. I don't see any Q&A, but I just wanted to maybe take a minute or so, if you're okay, hopefully we're okay with that, to ask you about so you've got your PEA possibly coming in the next few months, is that right?
Correct. Yeah, we haven't launched it yet, but we're still reviewing all the details of the desktop to decide exactly what the PEA will focus on.
Okay, excellent. And anything else to elaborate on the engineering studies?
No, I think I went into it quite in detail. I took enough time on that, but no, it's just sometimes when the pre-feas was done, everybody was thinking bigger is better. Mm-hmm. And everybody, other groups were selling their deposits for $300, $400, $500, $600 million. And so we were just focused on looking like them. Mm-hmm. And certainly there's a lot of copper here, and the 95,000 ton per day throughput is easy. But when you have a capex that's 1.6 billion, it does have less number of people that necessarily would want to build it. So if we can get a capex that's less than $1 billion, it does definitely open the doors for a number of companies that would be, have the finances to put in place. The other thing about the smaller project is I believe it would be much more quick to permit. Mm-hmm. And given that there aren't other big mines in Lambayeque, it just might be smoother to get everything done, and actually easier given the climate we're in right now with the price of copper. Why not get into production much faster, but in a smaller way, and then ramp up later?
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And also, how's the relationship with Fortescue? Obviously, you have a board director now. Come on, and they seem like quite active. You mentioned their, your monthly meetings. Would it be safe to assume that they're a contender or to build the mine?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And
the discussions we have had is, for they're a huge company. Bigger is better for them. Right. But we have on our technical committee explained the benefits of potentially starting smaller and then ramping up, and they understand that. They were absolutely thrilled to know that we don't need the roaster. Mm-hmm. Not that it's not tried and true technology, and it's certainly environmentally friendly and everything, but it's just one more piece of the puzzle that adds complexity and ESG concerns. So that's
right. Yeah. Well, you answered my question about what the ESG entails, and it's quite interesting that the government has stepped in and helped quite significantly with the initiatives. So
yeah, they really recognize the importance of Cañariaco to northern Peru.
And with the year, in some ways, the year lost with COVID, but were you able to get down there at all? Is that a dumb question? I know you're.
No, I did not, but we have a huge team. We had people living in Cajamarca, in Chiclayo, which is the town nearby, and our camp was open because the locals that live in the hills in Caseríos, like little hamlets very nearby, they take care of the camp. So it was amazing, actually, how we managed to just keep functioning during COVID, and everybody working from their homes, staying as safe as they could. And Cañariaco itself actually didn't have very many cases of COVID because same thing, they just stayed by themselves and didn't let people visit them.
Right. Okay. Well, Joanne, good luck with the studies. We'll be following you. Great story. And is there anything I'm missing that we haven't covered?
Well, I could mention that what's interesting for me when we first started working on Cañariaco and thinking of how it could be built, and then listed on the Lima Stock Exchange, the Peruvian pension funds were quite interested in being part of the build. Now, once we had a capex of 1.6 billion, we were thinking, no, just sell to a major. But now, if we could have a capex less than a billion, I've been told that the Peruvian pension funds would actually be there for 50% of that in very attractive debt financing. And then we've also had discussions with some European smelter owners and copper, some big companies. And they are very interested in doing offtake with us and have their own new process for arsenic, low grade, what they call low arsenic levels, between 1% and 2%. Mm-hmm. And then if we did an offtake with them, we'd also have the ability for inexpensive debt from European banks that work with nationals. So it's very interesting, actually, when you have a lower capex project, the interest you have and the opportunity you see for actually putting in production yourself. So nice to know that those are possibilities.
Yeah, well, excellent. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. Looks like you're really well positioned, Joanne. And if you don't mind, I'm going to quote you on a video I watched with you. You said, "Gold is money and copper is life."
Absolutely. That's my favorite. Yeah, please do. Yeah. Don't forget that. Copper is life. Yeah.